everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming down to Carpenters Local's 330's Hall for our 2024 legislative kickoff. I'm Ben Branchaud and I am the political coordinator here in Rhode Island. The legislative session just started last week, and thanks to the reps and senators with me today and others up at the State House, we've already introduced our top priority legislation for the session, House Bill 7054, and the accompanying Senate bill is the Construction Industry Paycheck Recovery Act, which a lot of people in attendance today might be familiar with as up-the-chain legislation. But before we speak about construction industry paycheck recovery, I want to recognize and thank Senator Meghan Kallman, Senator Tiara Mack, and Representative David Morales for their work on this legislation. I also want to congratulate and thank each of you for your work last year in your successful endeavor to pass the bill to make wage theft a felony here in Rhode Island. Last year's felony wage theft bill and this year's Construction Industry Recovery Act are the two most important pieces of legislation we can pass to protect construction workers from nefarious, shadowy subcontractors and create a level playing field for law-abiding contractors here in our state. The construction industry paycheck recovery legislation allows construction workers who have been ripped off by corrupt, fly-by-night subcontractors to recover their stolen wages directly from the prime contractor on the job. This is already possible on public work projects here in Rhode Island. The bill shifts the responsibility of recovering stolen wages from the exploited worker to the contractor who allowed that unscrupulous subcontractor on their job site in the first place. The Construction Industry Paycheck Recovery Bill creates for the victim a clear legal pathway through the intentionally murky web of tiers of subcontractors above them, directly to the prime contractor who allowed that crime to happen on their job site. Our reps and senators in attendance today need to make their way to the State House pretty soon, so I'm going to introduce a couple of them to speak. First, I'm proud to introduce Senator Meghan Kallman, who's been championing up-the-chain legislation, the Paycheck Recovery Act, in the Senate for the past 3 years and has passed it in the Senate twice. So thank you for your work, Senator Kallman.
Thanks for being here today. Very glad to be here. Sorry we still have to be here. One of these days we're going to, get all these boxes ticked off. So on the issues that matter most to working Rhode Islanders, we have made a lot of progress. The felony wage theft bill last year was a big win. We got it through the House. Thank you, Rep. Morales, and now it's law. As we begin our 2024 session, all of this work continues. Wage theft, as you all know, can take a lot of forms. It's difficult to know its full economic impact, which means that we're probably underestimating that impact when we look at what that means for the state. The details that we do have, according to the Economic Progress Institute, about $1 billion in stolen wages is recovered from authorities nationwide yearly. That's a lot. That's a lot. That was a 14th of our state budget last year. The true figure is likely far higher because often wage theft is underreported, right, and it's unrecompensed. That's billions of dollars taken away from working families, including our families, our friends, our neighbors, our children. Nobody should be able to do that. You should not be able to knowingly steal from Rhode Island workers. That should not be allowed. So I'm grateful for the action that we've taken to address that, and in this session I'm really proud to be reintroducing this bill, which will forever in my mind be branded as the up-the-chain bill, although now apparently it's called Paycheck Protection Recovery Act. Thank you. The bill seeks to ensure that contractors are responsible for making sure all workers on their job sites are paid the wages that they have earned and that they deserve. Creating this mechanism for up-the-chain responsibility is another way basically to express our faith in the workers of our state, right? As part of the social contract, we need to create laws that protect you guys. You guys are building the world, we're paying you for it. And we should be paying every cent that is owed. So thank you all for your support. We will keep you posted. Through Ben, I hope to see many people up at the State House when we have hearings on this bill. Having people come out and testify and talk about the impact of this on their lives is a really important tool that we use. And so anyway, come say hi afterwards, and thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Senator Kallman. We also have Representative David Morales, who's been championing this bill for 3 years on the House side and has spoken on its importance at the last 2 Carpenters Annual Tax Fraud Days of Action, which is coming up in a few months, so stay tuned for that. So thank you for your work, brother.
Now, to all of our brothers and sisters within organized labor and across Rhode Island, we are gathered here today preparing for another legislative session to ensure that we are advocating, that we are on the front lines advocating for further protections to all working people across the state, specifically those within the construction industry. And I say that because more often than not, at the national and the local level, we have broken labor laws that are continuously abused because of the loopholes that exist. One of the most infamous loopholes that we've seen play out year after year is a subcontractor not adequately paying the workers and thereafter not claiming any responsibility or liability. Same goes for the contractor. So at the end of the day, the question must be asked, who is being held accountable? No one. No one is being held accountable as it relates to subcontractors committing wage theft around the workers, the hardworking men and women in this state engaged in construction projects. And this is why we're reintroducing the Paycheck Industry Protection Act for the 3rd year in a row to ensure that all of our workers are afforded the right to be paid properly for the amount of hours that they have worked. And if there is a case where there's susceptible wage theft, regardless of whether it is the contractor or the subcontractor in question, there will now be an actual process for there to be accountability. We will have legal statutes citing that the prime contractor is responsible, as opposed to the current practice where they hide behind the fact that, well, it was the subcontractor who committed that, go take up your complaint with them. And then you don't hear from them. And then you're ghosted after a project, and the matter of the fact is you have gone without being paid. And as a result, you suffer and your loved ones suffer. And the fact that we as a state have allowed this to play out year after year is just wrong. And we made progress a few years ago when we enacted this type of law for public projects. But as we know, here in this state, it's not just public construction, we also have private development. So why is it that our workers within private development aren't being held with the same rights? Why is it that those contractors are allowed to play with different rules? They shouldn't be. And that is why we will have hearings over the next several months. And we hope that all of you can be there to share your experience. Because no one is a better subject matter expert around this issue than the workers themselves. And of course, we'll naturally have some business interests that try to interfere and stall this legislation and say that they're one of the quote-unquote good guys. But the question is, if they are complying with the law, why is there an issue if we enact this? And this is where our advocacy will make a difference. So it is an honor to be in community with all of you for another year, but I hope that this is the year, and I am confident that this will be the year we finally pass this into law for all workers and accountability will finally be met. Thank you.
We have some other legislative priorities this year that I want to talk about outside of the Paycheck Recovery Act. That includes prompt payment to minority business enterprises in the construction industry, modernizing all of the schools in our state to a high efficiency standard, building housing responsibly and with strong labor standards, and tackling workplace abuse and harassment through the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. Senator Tiara Mack has been a fierce advocate for all these issues, and we are proud to say she's been a friend of the Carpenters since her first election in 2020. So I'd like to welcome Senator Tiara Mack. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. I'll keep it brief because my fierce colleagues over here have already done the work of laying out why workers' rights in Rhode Island is going to continue the momentum that 2023 set up and set the precedent for workers' rights across our nation. We had huge and historic wins nationally, but Rhode Island deserves those same wins for all of our workers right here, right now in 2024. We can capitalize on that movement by doing what my colleague said, coming to the State House and participating in those public meetings and having your voice heard. Because the future of Rhode Island is dependent exclusively on the work of you all. Whether it's building new schools and getting them up to code, whether it's making sure that we have a housing stock that is safe, affordable, and that will meet the needs of Rhode Islanders for generations to come. That is the work of you all, you all in this building, and of the people that you all represent on the job site and beyond the job site. We cannot have a Rhode Island that works for everyone without you all as a critical and core part of the workforce and of people that are making sure that every single person in the system, from the top to the bottom, is held accountable for making sure our state is one that people are proud of for generations to come, because their work is represented in our future schools and in our housing stock and in the infrastructure that we have laid out before us to make us climate resilient, to make us a top contributor in national conversations, and to make sure that the work right here in Rhode Island sets a national precedent for how we treat workers on every single job site. And we can only do that with your support and with the momentum that you all are able to build. We have more fierce advocates like the sponsor of the MBE Swift pay legislation, like Senator Cano, and all of the sponsors on that. I'm proud to be someone who stands with workers' rights and who makes sure that the voices of the most marginalized folks are at the center of that. Good paying union jobs literally give every single person in my community a leg up, whether they are residents in Washington Park who for the first time are able to buy a home because they became a carpenter, like my friend Juan Huertas, who became a carpenter and now is able to own a home in my community and provide for his family. That is the Rhode Island dream that should be possible to every single person, and we cannot do that unless we respect the wages, hold everyone up the chain of command responsible, and then also make sure we're prioritizing building new, affordable, safe, quality homes in every single community. It is no secret that Rhode Island is facing a housing crisis, and folks in the trades and in the unions are the folks who are going to make sure that we are digging ourselves out of that crisis, and they're going to be the ones building those homes on good union jobs and making sure they get their necessary salary that they deserve and that they work hard for. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the continued work, and I'm so proud to stand alongside these two folks here as well on the chamber floor, and I hope to see you all there.
Solidarity.
I'm very proud that we're introducing legislation that protects hardworking men and women in the construction industry and holds accountable those who willfully ignore unscrupulous and dangerous business practices and behavior on their job sites. Let's pass House Bill 7054. Let's pass it in the Senate. Let's eradicate wage theft, protect construction workers, clean up the industry, and create a just economy in Rhode Island. So these folks have to get to the State House. I'm going to head up to the State House too for a little while. Thank you all for coming, and have a great night.